Fam, what's up? Kyle Henderson, Bama Football on YouTube. Hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. Today, I'm going to provide you with what I learned from fall camp as Alabama closes up fall camp and now heads into week 1 of the college football season. Fam, if I could get a thumbs up and a roll tide inside the comment box. Super chats are appreciated. So are tips. I have the Venmo link inside the comment box. I sincerely appreciate your support. Today is about camp superlatives. And we start off with the offensive MVP and the defensive MVP from fall camp. Now, I was thinking about the offensive MVP. You might be a little bit shocked, so I'm going to wait on that. Let me talk about the defensive MVP. Let me ask you, who's your defensive MVP from fall camp? A guy that we've talked about, who has leadership, who has that dog mentality. I think this was pretty easy for me. It came down to 2 players who were each on the first team all SEC ballot, Kool-Aid or Dallas Turner. For me though, it's easy. It's Dallas Turner. And I think his mindset, the mentality, look, he's following William Anderson's footsteps. There's a lot of people that really don't understand how good Dallas Turner is going to be this coming season. I think he's the top edge rusher in all of college football, honestly. He's, if not a top 10 pick in the 2024 NFL draft, he'd be a top 5 pick. Yes, you heard that right. That is how good. There's been some sources that I've been talking to that say Dallas Turner isn't too far behind William Anderson, and that is a gigantic testimony to just how good Dallas Turner is right now. And can you imagine what he's going to do this coming season as now the leader of this Alabama defense? Of course, you have Kool-Aid and some other guys who are starting to make names for themselves. But for the defensive MVP, it came down to either Kool-Aid for me or Dallas Turner. But I'm going with Dallas Turner being that vet, providing that experience, and overall just that mentality. I loved hearing him just the other day talk about kind of the Doc Rivers story, and what he learned from listening to Doc Rivers is, look, you got to put different players in different situations, and it's all about that mentality. Sometimes you got to be the star. Sometimes you got to support the star, and understanding where you are on that team makes a team. So Dallas Turner is my defensive MVP. Now, check this out. So the offensive MVP for me came down to 3 particular players. Let me know if you agree with this. This might be a little bit controversial, but I was thinking about this. Okay, so the clear choice is probably J.C. Latham, considering that, you know, he's going to be an NFL first-round draft pick. My second choice, though, was Tyler Booker. I love Tyler Booker's mentality. So I'm kind of looking at the MVP almost from a mentality standpoint, because I want to see that mentality spill over into week 1. Plus, a lot of the overall talent that the player has. Tyler Booker's absolutely phenomenal. He's a top guard in the SEC, 100%. But I'm going to go with, and this is actually a special teams pick, so I'm going to go with Will Reichert as my offensive MVP from fall camp. And you might be out there screaming, what? Or you might be scratching your head, but just hold on for a second. Hear me out, okay? When the offensive lines up on the field, I consider, you know, when the special teams unit goes out on the field and you have to make a kick, that Will Reichert is part of that unit. Now, Will Reichert overall has played in the most games out of anybody that returns to the 2023 season for Alabama. He had an opportunity to leave Alabama, comes back to Alabama, which I think is this is so underrated that Will Reichert's coming back. You're talking about literally, like, you get into the 40, like you're getting points on the board regardless. This allows you to be aggressive. This allows you to take different chances. And this year, more than any, when there's a lot of questions about Alabama's offense, you can, rely on the fact that you have an outstanding field goal kicker and Will Reichert. Overall percentage, 82%. He's a national champion, right? Back to that COVID year. And he has the most points out of anybody ever to play at the University of Alabama. Think about that statistic for a second. We spoke to him. I talked to him about the mindset, because I think when we think about kickers, you think about the kicks that they missed rather than all the kicks that they made. The guy is certainly such a huge asset to Alabama. You don't have him this year, man, you're going to have to rely on a freshman kicker. And I think that puts more question marks on the special teams unit, right? On the offense. What can the offense do? So I think he's a very valuable weapon going into this season. So Will Riker is my offensive MVP. Let me know if you agree with that. Give me a thumbs up if you do inside the comment box. I want to talk about the most improved player from fall camp. I think the most improved player from fall camp overall from a technical standpoint, I'm going to go with Terrion Arnold. Terrion Arnold, I think, displayed a great sense of expanding his ability to be a cover corner. I think he worked on his craft. And the scrimmages, from what we understand, I mean, the first scrimmage was open. He was probably my MVP. He's going to be counterparted by Kool-Aid, JaQuincy McKinstry, and Trey Amos, right? The transfer that's in. But overall, when you look to guys who worked and improved year over year and who have, done an exceptional job working on the craft, I think Terrion Arnold is absolutely that guy. I can't wait to see him in some good matchups, literally in that week 2 matchup against Texas. Alabama's going to need that dime package, and the dime package requires more secondary players that are versatile, and you're going to need all those weapons against Texas. We've talked about it time and time again, the arsenal that Texas has coming in, especially with their quarterback and all their weapons at wide receiver and tight end. Terrion Arnold is ready. If you don't know about Terrion Arnold, you're about to know about him. Alabama's 2 corners, really 3 now, that I feel Alabama has 3 solid starting corners in Kool-Aid, who is clearly a first-round pick in next year's NFL draft. Trey Amos, who could have a breakout season, 100%. Coach Saban has been really high on him. And then Terrion Arnold, who also got some positive praise from Coach Saban this fall camp. So that is my most improved player for fall camp. Strongest position group. Well, the position group that I feel has the most strength is the running back room. I thought about the outside linebackers and I thought about the offensive line. But I'm going to go with running backs because, as Coach Sean from Huntsville said, you can put your hand into a jar and pull one of those running backs out, and that running back is going to be sufficient. That running back is going to be dynamic. That running back can carry the load. Think about all the running backs in that room from top to bottom. You have Jace returning. People know about Jace. Texas knows about Jace. A little banged up, and I get it. Probably some of the injuries that he's went through have slowed down the hype that he has, but he's on the Maxwell Award watch list. People know how good he is. Roydell Williams has had a phenomenal fall camp. Got a lot of reps with the ones, and he's a 1 during the second Alabama scrimmage. He can carry the workload. I loved on the council with Alabama football that they put out, Roydell and Jace had a very similar injury, and they had a very similar recovery experience. Those 2 guys would ride in the car together to go get treatment. That mentality of teammates, they have that brotherhood. Those are some very solid and capable running backs. People don't know how good those 2 are. Honestly, they don't. I think they feel that they're above average, but they're more than that. Another running back that we've been talking about, and he's starting to get some more love, and thankfully, is Jam Miller. I'm going to talk about more Jam Miller later on. But Jam Miller, outstanding. He's big. He's imposing. And I think Jam Miller could be a guy that runs the football 20 to 25 times if Alabama absolutely needed him to. You put him at any other program, he's 100% the featured back. You got Justice Haynes and you got Richard Young as a true freshman running backs. Justice Haynes scored 3 touchdowns in the spring game. He is going to play for Alabama this year 100%. He carried that momentum in from spring into fall 100%. I think he was a little bit banged up towards the end of fall camp, but who isn't? You get to that point in fall camp, it's a grind, right? He's going to be ready for this coming season. And then you got Richard Young, another very talented Alabama freshman running back. Still green, but let's see where Richard Young is kind of towards the middle of the season. And Coach Saban said that he's coming along. He just has to learn the pass protection, being that he was a late ad, and that happens with some of the summer enrollees. The top transfer in, this is tough because I think you have two of them right now kind of fighting for that title. I'm going to go ahead and give it to Jalen Key right now, but who's coming on really strong is Trezmen Marshall. So each of these guys are probably going to be a likely starter for Alabama. There we go, talking about transfer portal guys that have came into Alabama and earned starting spots. Jalen Key, what I like about him is he's so versatile in the secondary. You've heard me talk about the versatility and how important that is for players in the secondary to have that, and he does have that. He can play star. He can play safety. He's a big dude. I don't think people know how physical he is. And you want somebody who is very physical at the safety spot. Key next to Caleb Downs is a great tandem. And another thing that I like about that is the fact that Jalen Key has so much experience that he can provide that knowledge that will spill over to Caleb Downs. We can't forget about Devontae Smith because he's going to be back there in the rotation as well. So I'm going to go ahead and give my top transfer in as Jalen Key. But look, Trezmen Marshall is making a name for himself, especially, I would say, towards the last 2 weeks of fall camp. This is a guy who transferred from Georgia. And think about this. You could have two transfers from Georgia to Alabama that are starting. One on the offensive side of the ball in Jermaine Burton, and then one on the defense in Trezmen Marshall at the inside linebacker spot. And I know he's going to get some time with Jahad Campbell. And there's more than just 11 starters on each side of the football. I get that. But Trezmen Marshall is a guy who is athletic, who can hit, who has experience, and Coach Saban really excited about him. Can you imagine Trezmen Marshall next to Deontay Lawson? That is a really good combo at that inside linebackers, flanked by Dallas Turner and Chris Broswell. It's a great group of linebackers, 100%. So Jalen Key gets the top transfer in, but Trezmen Marshall right there as well. Let's talk about the top true freshmen through fall camp. For me, I'm going to go with Caleb Downs. Spoke about Caleb Downs and kind of the success that he had during the springtime. And if we don't talk about some of these true freshmen, it's not that they're performing poorly. It's just Caleb Downs is going to be a day one starter at the University of Alabama, especially in the secondary. Secondary is a very difficult unit area to play in just because of the speed of the game. Heard that Caleb Downs, look, he's had, there's been some times during camp, I think it was even during the second scrimmage, where he got burnt on deep coverage. It's going to be very difficult for Downs as a freshman to come in and understand the speed from Middle Tennessee to Texas, right? Those are going to be difficult games, and if he has to drop down and if he's on, the big tight end from Texas, that's going to be a tough matchup. But from what we understand, he's ready for that. He wouldn't be put out there if he wasn't ready for that. He is going against the ones every single day at practice at Alabama. Caleb Downs carried that momentum just like Justice Haynes did from the spring into the fall. So he is your number one freshman out of fall camp. And then right behind him, you got to go with Caden Proctor. And the thing I like about Caden Proctor is, the overall size, right? The size of these guys, they're towering 6'7", 365 pounds or whatever. It's quite impressive to see the overall size that some of these freshmen have. And Caden Proctor getting on the field. And look, you asked the same question. Well, is he ready for college football Saturdays? Dallas Turner this week said, look, I go up against him every day. So Caden Proctor is going against a top 10 pick in the NFL draft every day. You don't think he's ready? He's seen the speed. He knows what it takes to stop an outside linebacker. Can't imagine those battles. I'm sure it's tough. But you're only going to get better because iron sharpens iron, right? And Dallas Turner is a finely sharpened piece of iron, if you will. Let's talk about the biggest breakthrough player. The biggest breakthrough player, got to go with Tim Keenan. That was a great story during fall camp because you have a guy who came in, I'll say it, out of shape. Same thing with Jaheim Otis, and you see that sometimes with the defensive tackles. But the body transformation that these guys have done is remarkable. And credit to those individuals themselves because it does take a lot of self-discipline to get your body right, to get your mind right, to stay in the right psychological disposition to keep your body where it needs to be, specifically shedding weight and the right weight to play at this level, especially play at a plug position. This was great news. Having Coach Saban talk about Jaheim Otis and Tim Keenan, I love it because you want that defensive nastiness inside the trenches. When Tim Keenan first got here, I was like, man, I wonder how long it's going to take him to get on the field because he just, he didn't look athletic enough at that specific time. But to hear him get some positive praise and to see him considered as a starter now at the University of Alabama, I think is a monumental breakthrough from him. So breakthrough player for fall camp, definitely got to go with Tim Keenan. Okay, buy this stock right now. Let's go with another true freshman by the name of Dylan Lonergan. Everybody wants to talk about Julian Sain, and rightfully so. 5-star quarterback, number 1 quarterback in the country. We're always talking about the next quarterback, right? Well, Dylan Lonergan, like the hype, and people ask me, they're like, is the hype for real around Lonergan? Or, people just saying that. No. Like, the guy had a fantastic fall camp, and he carried a lot of that momentum from spring into fall, just like Caleb Downs and Justice Haynes and Caden Proctor. Dylan Lonergan has a great arm, he's very underrated as an overall athlete. Like, he can run on you. Now, he's more of a pro style, 100%, but I think he has a very live arm, great accuracy, runs through his progressions from what we're told, has a good continuity with some of these younger wide receivers. So buy the stock now. Dylan Lonergan, excited to see him continue to progress this coming season. Alabama's made a ton of changes at quarterback, as Coach Saban has said, and they're not afraid to play the best on the team. Is he the best quarterback in the room right now? I wouldn't say that. But if his name was called this season, Dylan Lonergan is capable to win games for Alabama. Bet on that. Okay, so the comeback kid for fall camp, you can say comeback man, a guy who dealt with injury last year but is back, going to be a force this year, monumental to the Alabama defense, is going to be Justin Bogbe. Bogbe, after Will Riker, the kicker, who has 46 games played, I think Justin Bogbe has over 40 games. I think it's like 42 games played. That's a vet. That's a lot of experience. That's a guy who's been in the trenches. That's a guy who's won games, lost games. That's a man, battle-tested. That's a quiet leader. You listen to him, he doesn't have to say too much, but he has a very business-like approach to him. And I think that we haven't talked about him enough. I think he's athletic. He has really long arms. He can stop running backs that are running outside of the tackles. He can go get the quarterback. Justin Bogbe is a very high-valued asset for Alabama's defensive line, 100%. Hey, fam, thank you very much for listening. Hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe. I really appreciate you guys being here. Super chats, I really appreciate it. And then the Venmo link is inside the comment box. I really appreciate all the support as we get through fall camp and move to week 1 of the college football season. I'll be coming live to you during the season on Sunday night, on Monday night, and on Wednesday night, and of course, during the post-game show. From beautiful Tuscaloosa, Alabama, Kyle Henderson, Bama football on YouTube.